Today we are ranking the open world regions of Elden Ring and its DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. No need for a long intro, let's get started with our dead last entry, the Consecrated Snowfield. Elden Ring's open world is amazing in almost every way, and out of every region on this list, the bottom two are the only ones I outright dislike. The main reason is how frustrating the areas feel to actually explore. That's pretty important. The first part where the blizzard blinds you and obscures your vision is one of those mechanics that sounded interesting during development. Maybe developers had fun making it or something, who knows. But actually playing it isn't fun, and right after you get through that storm, you come face to face with my next huge issue here. The enemies you fight in the Consecrated Snowfield are range from boring, like wolves or those goofy ass Albinorics, to downright infuriating like the archers or rune bears we run into here. Apart from that, we have no NPCs in the entire region. Like really, isn't that bizarre? But yeah, no quest lines or any of that sort. The closest thing we get to any side quests is the Ordina town puzzle to get you to the Haley-Tree, which is fucking awful. Finding the Consecrated Snowfield for the first time feels amazing, but the actual content inside of it leaves a lot to be desired, and it feels more like a bridge to the Haley-Tree or Mogun's Palace on replays when you run through everything. The one saving grace is I do enjoy some of the dungeons here, like the one with the Golden Order Greatsword and the one that has the Estelle reskin. Those are two of the best world dungeons in Elden Ring, but it's not enough to save the Consecrated Snowfield from a last place ranking. Coming in at second to last place is the Mountaintops of the Giants. When I first heard about a snow region from Melna after the fight against Morgoth, my expectations were through the roof. As I headed over to it, I could not be more excited. Elden Ring's open world nailed every open world region so far, and now I was getting a snow biome? Let's fucking go. But it ended up being a bit too good to be true. The mountaintops are huge, but a lot of that space is you spending long stretches just riding torrent between points of interest. On repeat playthroughs especially, it becomes very noticeable how little there actually is to do and discover compared to earlier regions. And the problem is made worse by the fact that everything you're fighting here are things you've seen already. All of the enemies, yes, all of the enemies are reused from earlier parts of the game. That's not okay with me. It's also true of the field bosses, which I had come to expect at this point in the game, but they chose some miserable ones to reuse, like the Deathrite birds are fighting Vike again, but this time with lightning. There's some longer catacombs here, like the ones with the Zamora warrior, but the standout one is definitely Castle Sol for the worst reasons. Fuck Castle Sol, fuck all the knights here, and fuck Commander Niall. What the Mountaintops does have for it is presentation. The scale is impressive, and the chain bridge leading deeper into the region is a strong visual moment. There's also a sense of build-up as you approach the end of the game that does make this feel very grand and epic, but that's where the disappointment comes in. Because up to this point, Elden Ring had consistently rewarded exploration in almost every region. The Mountaintops are where that expectation starts to break down. Exploration just isn't consistently rewarding enough to justify the size of the area, and that's why it lands here. It's not completely terrible, but compared to everything that comes before it, it feels like a major drop in quality. Coming in next is Mount Gelmir. This region is more interesting to me, mainly because it has its own distinct identity inside the world of Elden Ring, and I appreciate that a lot about it, even if the content isn't all there. The layout of the mountain itself is extremely unique. There's a lot of verticality here, with the ladders, spear jumps, and odd paths leading up to the top. The ladders are a bit excessive, but the idea of having all this verticality was awesome, and it's something the DLC later improved on a ton. In terms of exploration, there's more to find here compared to Mountaintops and the Consecrated Snowfield, but it still doesn't reach the level of the strongest regions in the game. It feels like there's a clear identity and charm to Mount Gelmir, but not enough content built around it to fully support that identity. The enemies you fight here are a bit uneven, but it's still a step up from the last two regions that only reused enemies. There's a lot of frenzied flame soldiers I fight, but I usually just run past the abductor versions at this point, and the Falling Star Beast is one of the more frustrating field bosses in the area for me. On the other hand, I do like fighting magma worms, and those are very enjoyable. And stumbling across Alexander here behind that to continue his questline is one of the more memorable moments in the region. Volcano Manor is not part of this ranking since it's a legacy dungeon, but outside of that, Mount Gelmir doesn't have a huge amount of meaningful content to engage with. And it does a good job establishing a unique part of the world, but it just doesn't have the amount of stuff to do in it to compete with the stronger regions above it. It does its job though. Coming in at number 6 is the Gravesite Plain from the Shadow of the Erdtree, one of the two open world regions from the DLC that we're going to tackle in this video. Seeing the Gravesite Plain for the first time is mind-blowing. I will never forget seeing the whole area after 2 long years of waiting. Its visual identity is strong from the moment you step in, and it does a great job of setting the tone for the DLC. It feels very separated from anything in the base game, which is exactly what you want from an opening region like this. In terms of exploration, there is a decent amount of stuff to find, but it's not on par with the main game's exploration. That's also not to say it's as empty as certain critique videos would tell you it is either though. The enemies here are very cool, they hit hard, and fit the vibe of the area as well. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of the actual bosses like the Ghost Flame Dragon. He's pretty cool looking but awful to fight. And the Furnace Golem, well, they completely suck. They're awful and one of the worst crimes From Software has ever committed. This is definitely a beautifully done region that feels more complete as an experience. Even if it isn't one of the most densely packed areas in the game, it opens the DLC on a high note for me. At number 5, we have Caelid. If you played this game on release or played it blind, you probably first came here through the chest in Limgrave teleporting you here. I always laugh about that. When it first happened, I knew Miyazaki still had his fastball. What a goddamn troll. Caelid is seriously unsettling. Going through it always gives you a sense of dread, and the crow and dog enemies give you even more anxiety as you fight or run by them. As someone who follows the lore closely, I wasn't even getting mad at all the scarlet rot everywhere in this region because I knew I was in historically significant places from back in the Shattering. Exploration is also excellent here. Two things in particular I liked were the abandoned cave you find on the spiral tree root thing that was hanging off a cliffside, and the War Dead catacombs being in the Wailing Dunes after the War Festival was such a fantastic idea for anyone crazy enough to look that deep. I found out about it much later, so I'm jealous of anyone who found that on their own. Caelid nails the nightmare hellscape From Software trying to make it come across as. And real quick guys, if you've enjoyed the video to this point, a like and subscribe would mean a lot, but back to the video. Coming in at number 4 is Shadow Altus. This is what I always think of when I think of the open world of the DLC. Much like Graveside Plain, Shadow Altus is visually beautiful and has a strong identity compared to anything in the base game, but there's much more to do in Shadow Altus compared to Graveside Plain. I never understand why people complain about the Shadowlands exploration because I always felt like I was finding enough. Even if it wasn't necessarily an item tailor-made for my build, I always felt like I was finding something interesting while I was going about the world. Take for example the path to Bonnie Village you find after dropping through a few places in the underground. I didn't expect to find a whole new area through there and that blew me away even if it wasn't an item. And the enemies here are also all solid. Mesmer Soldiers and Black Knights are fun, besides when they come with the Ghost Flame Dragon, that sure sucks. That whole thing is absolutely terrible. On the other hand, the Rune Bear bosses here are actually great despite how much I hate them as standard enemies. Shadow Altus is an amazing region. It feels like a different place in the base game while still being Elden Ring, and that's exactly what you want from your DLC area. Coming in at number 3 is Altus Plateau. Altus is the home of the Erdtree and has a golden lush landscape. It feels so alive compared to the other regions because of this, even though it's not. This is a significant place. Exploration is excellent in Altus. Seemingly every corner has some kind of dungeon, and out of the base game, Altus has some of the best ones. The chariot puzzle was cool, and the Sage's Cave with all its hidden illusionary walls was so shocking to me. It's rare that From Software just keeps giving you free stuff on a silver platter, so that sticks out for that funny reason. The thing I didn't like about this place was the field bosses. Take for example the ancient dragons who just fly away, or the worm-faced fuck who would deathblade you for an instant death. That whole Deathblade area in general was a bit bad if I'm being honest, but it wasn't that big or that much of Altus. When it comes to Altus Plateau, I always think of my first playthrough where I thought this was the final region. It's partly because the Erdtree and Elden Throne await you at the capital, but also because of how grand this region felt. It was a really great build-up that really faked me out at the end there, but hey, maybe that's just me. And at number 2 we have Limgrave. During my very first day exploring Elden Ring and Limgrave, I kept thinking to myself over and over I could not believe From Software actually pulled this open world off. I get nostalgia thinking about the early days with this game, but my gatekeeping days are over. From Software has hit the mainstream now. Limgrave had a ton of stuff to do. It has dungeons and caves everywhere, and the dungeons themselves are nothing to write home about. It's still early, so they're short and sweet, but finding them while going through the world naturally is something Limgrave did amazing, and not every region was able to keep that going. It set the bar almost impossibly high, and only one other region for me was able to match it. This is also where you will meet most NPCs for the first time, setting a lot of side content and quests in motion for later. One of my favorite things close to release was discovering that the Knights Cavalry were only showing up at night. It made the possibilities seem endless with this game. Limgrave is a 10 out of 10 introduction to Elden Ring, only Liurnia matches it, which comes in at number 1. Stepping into Liurnia of the Lakes for the first time after the fight against Godric is something else. That cliffside view is enchanting. Liurnia does everything Limgrave did so well, but does it bigger and with more of it. That whole feeling I talked about of natural exploration on Limgrave is done just as good, if not better here. The area is huge, and it's the biggest in the game by far, with none of it going to waste, which is why it comes in at number 1. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was something a little different. I'm trying not to be typecast as the boss ranking guy. I want to do some other stuff, but I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Check out a video on screen now while you're here.